don't try to stay away from it, but push it over the edge sometimes. Push it into the water and give it two functions. So that's just going to stand on this side. So that this curved line could appear on the street level itself. The street level just extends towards its edge. But we also have a second identity of this green area on the riverside also extends. It's a continuous strip that goes along what I said before, from the castle green, from the other river towards the other side, underneath the bridge, and this connection is still there, but it's just simply smaller, there's more tension, it's only pathways where you can physically touch it, but you can do it in both ways. You can physically touch it on this side, and on this street level, you have this view and you have this quality of living on the water side. Another element is the density. The density of our plan starts on the right side of the transport hub, and it can get more dense and dense on the side, and gradually flows over in more as an open space to the castle. Because we still think that this castle area should be celebrated. It should be an open view. It should be just this castle on the end. This density is formed by the following of the functions. But to show that it's not all the same in this whole character of this strip, this whole strip on the whole edge of this development, we want to have more tensions. We want to have more contrast. It should be more build on build. It should be defined. Sometimes we can have a lot of open spaces because we extend our area more to the riverside. We have more space, so we can make also these open spaces, but we can also make these dense spaces. But we think that it should be more dense at some points. But how to deal with these tensions, that is something that you should research more, and it's something that you have to pay attention on, and what is really important, how close can we build. This tension also follows a function that I mentioned, and it's not only densifies in the long length of this whole plot, but it also densifies in height. On the edge towards the bridge, it can be higher, it can be more closed up. It actually should be more closed up, because then we can add the functions of commercial, of retail. We can add them in these bigger plots just by making these strips combined together and making these bigger, harder edges. The height of these buildings, we don't want to have high-rise buildings, but why don't we have sometimes a high point on this edge? Just as we give them a couple of simple basic rules is stay away from the height of the hill. So we are extending the height towards the hill, but you should always keep under this height, for example. You should always keep under the height of the church, for example. But we think that if you densify it on a low level, so low rise, high density, you can exceed with this program, and actually we extended it even. We added more program as in our area as was asked, that we think that it is possible. We don't know if we should do it in this way, but it is possible. And it should be a mixture of these spaces all along the strip. A mixture from left to right on the plot, from commerce to housing, and also a mixture from heights. So the ground floor on the main street area, on this edge, there should be shoppings, there should be public spaces, and towards the riverside it could be much more housing, restaurants, bars to use this quality of the riverside. Because also, the same as what the other presentation said, because we split it up, we extend the street, it's actually easy to phase it. The phasing, we don't see it as a problem, it's actually a simple intervention or simple solution that you can use by just cutting up these plots. If you cut up these plots, this first plot, it can just easily be built already without big interventions. The second phase, you should think about already, okay, but what happens with my infrastructure and what happens with my parking, because I'm adding a problem that needs this parking. The third phase, that for us is the most important phase and gives us this concept that we think we have to make a long-term plan, is a slow development. This is green river bank with a park on the riverside, or a strip green on the riverside, and a pier on the street level. It should be all over this plot, and not even only over this plot, but this actually should extend even further along the bridge. But this is a slow development gesture. But it shows the same actually is what the last scheme showed was the diversion between public spaces. As I already mentioned, these spaces should sometimes be dense, sometimes be open. And that's what we try to show with our plan is from this edge and from this side, it should be closed off. It should be a hard edge with a lot of buildings, with just only the small streets and small pedestrian walkways. Internal spaces, there of course also exist some courtyards, and on the edge of the riverside you have more open spaces, or these plazas or terraces just on the riverside. Can you just go back one time? The only thing that I wanted to add is the historical identity of this place. We also choose to just keep a couple of these historical old buildings. We're not saying that it exactly has to be this building, for instance, but what we think of, if you make this new development on the edge of the town and you want to have it the same identity as the old town center, you shouldn't develop just straight from scratch and don't tear apart everything. Keep some of these scarves. Maybe they're ugly. Maybe they give us more problems, but they actually make a strange beauty that is becoming unexpected of our grid. It just gives something special to this grid that you're adding. I think the last point that we wanted to point out here as well is this is what we think is important. It's the view of the town. It's the riverside. So as a conclusion, what I would like to say is that there are a couple of elements that we really think are important to deal in this area and in this plan. The tension of open and closed areas, public and private spaces, interior, exterior. The relations of the different levels of all these elements that you have to deal with. The relations and connections of the area, of the spaces around it, the old town, the river, the transportation hub, the park, all these connections within. But what we think is the most important thing is that you should bring the river to you should bring the city to the river and give it this window and sometimes even touch